you wrote a lovely piece on on how the media is treating this Ginny Thomas story. It should be huge, and it's not.
It absolutely should be huge.
Yeah, honestly, it reminds me of just a month or so ago when we found out Trump smuggled top secret documents out of the White House, right? Yeah. That was like a day story, maybe a day and a half, and the press came out and said, well, the Trump team was frenzied. They were making a hasty exit. They had their attention elsewhere. He was smuggling top secret documents. If that had been an Obama or a Clinton, it would have been, a 9-month story. It seems very similar. Ginny Thomas story broke on Thursday. To date, the Wall Street Journal hasn't put that story on page one. If you look at cable news is just kind of slow walking it. I count, I went and looked at the transcripts, about 100 mentions of Clarence Thomas over the first 3 days. And to put that in context, when the beginning of the month, when the cable news was losing its mind about rising gas prices, that got 1,200 mentions in a week.
Yeah.
So rising gas prices 10 times more important than the sitting Supreme Court justice's wife trying to overturn an election. And she has open access to the Trump White House. She's not just some conservative activist. Meanwhile, Clarence Thomas was the lone dissent, arguing that White House related documents should not be handed over to the January 6th. Right. And then in another lone dissent he had in February on another 2020 election case, he was just spreading lies about mail-in ballots that sounded just like Ginny Thomas's lies. Ginny Thomas is QAnon, period.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not, let's try to save the Trump presidency. She's talking about watermark ballots. She's talking about every InfoWar nonsense.
Yeah.
And my God, so some of the press is, she's just the wife. Well, we can't assign, blame to the, remember the 2016 election? You remember the Clinton Foundation?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Last time when powerful Democratic couples happen to run an A-run charity, but it gets slimed as being something nefarious. I mean, that was an 8-month story. So the press, again, look, they just don't. Yes, they will cover these stories as they pop up, these direct assaults on democracy, the Republican Party trying to do away with free and fair elections. They'll cover those, but it's never a blockbuster story.
Yeah, it obviously.
And I'm sorry, real quick.
No, go.
So this story was basically, Washington Post did a good job. New York Times was a little slow. CBS, CNN, and Washington Post kind of broke the story on Thursday. And so when you have multiple news organizations breaking the same story at the same time, that means it's a leak. This came from the 1-6 committee. It was kind of handed to these news organizations on a silver platter, which is fine. So then the question is, what's the follow-up? What's the independent? What's the shoe leather reporting they do on their own? And the follow-up reporting has been pretty slim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This should be, Benghazi on steroids at this point.